Sorry about that.
Fixed?
Large oof.
Biggest oof ever.
The
Oof size extreme.
My bad.
So for those of you that missed, we have Rochelle Brady with us this week. The X events,
not X.
not X.
That's
on hiatus. The on hiatus event coordinator used to be event person
She's taking a sabbatical.
/ card of the week
I wish I
extraordinaire. Card of the week extraordinaire.
Very good. And also, special guest, Taro Kageyama. Brr, 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 brr.
Bring it in, Taro, and he starts flowing in here with like his own theme music, and so it's cool. Hey, Case and Stripe, thanks for the follow, buddy. So,
Very good.
as we start rolling in, and we have the chairs unfolded. We got the tables with the snacks out for the people coming in. We got hot coffee, hot chocolate. If you like different types of strudel, we have the coffee cake, strawberry, and raspberry strudel. Please, friends, help yourself. It's going to be an interesting night. It's going to be one full of information that you cannot get anywhere else. Actually, you can probably get it on the Final Fantasy TCG places if you ask the right questions and if you ask nicely, But
And one of the things we'll be talking about tonight, you could have already had that information, myself included, if you paid attention, which I don't apparently. So we'll clear that up.
I mean, that's mainly why I said that I would come on here, because you were asking me questions that I've answered a million times.
Why don't you just say you like us, you enjoy the stream, and you also don't mind answering a few questions?
Because if it was just about liking you guys, then I would just sit in the chat and troll.
I do enjoy that too. So
Maybe like a Rochelle's FAQ dynamic living page on the Square website. Like
set up.
You get a ridiculous question for the 8th time, you just add it on there.
And then Nightbot just answers it for you.
For a while, when people were like, "Why are fire cards bad?" and he's like, "Just wait, you will regret all of this." Fire takes a while to warm up.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, also, like, there's like, why are fire cards bad? And like, isn't Mont Blanc useless? And definitely
Amazing.
not anymore.
Yeah. Well, it all, in my opinion, that all started with Cloud.
Mom
Cloud
Blanc.
was, oh man.
Yeah, well, Cloud. I think Cloud was the first card that got me like back excited about Fire around Opus 8. Great card.
Oh, yeah, that card's like one of my favorite ones in that set.
It's still sick though.
I would put that card probably in the still like top 10 cards right now. I think it's very good.
Yeah.
Just it's the gift that keeps on giving,
Yeah.
Definitely a
I had
powerhouse.
played right when that came out, just like for fun in Kansas. I did Fire Water with that and Luna Freya, so it just kept coming back.
I remember that.
It's sick.
Yeah.
Access to like the
there's
greatest
an ability in
thing.
that card that lets you come back anyway, right?
And then, yeah, but it comes back multiple times, and I don't have to remove cards.
Hey, this Cloud's coming back, but I got a coupon. It's a BOGO.
Though I did get calculated.
Did you?
Yeah, by oh my god, why am I blanking? Shane.
Calculating.
Yeah.
Great times. Great. Those are such simpler times for sure.
Yeah.
Principal Head, thank you so much for the follow.
Amazing.
But yeah, guys. It's been a while. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was gonna start segmenting into tonight. But what do you want to say, Alex?
No, please do go ahead.
Nice. Yeah, as we're waiting, just a little bit more people to stroll in, guys. Opus 12 is around the corner. We got pre-release soon, and it's only getting crazier from here, right? What we see is little by little all these card interactions from the RVA guys who put on that pretty dope preemptive strike Friday night, shenanigans that they do. So they show off everything other than Ned, although it's been promised that they were going to show off Ned several times, so we get clickbaited into watching them. But it's still fun nonetheless. Good 3 hours of just hanging out and everything. So, but aside from that, obviously being like the hot card of Opus 12, man, what are you guys excited to see? I'm definitely like every time I look at Thancred, I just see this card more and more and more playable. I'm getting real excited with Thancred. What about you guys?
Really, the multi-card thing is going to really open up a lot of channels. I'm thinking the multicolor uh, channels that I haven't even really honestly given crazy thought to until I have all those cards in hand. But I think we're going to open up some really crazy combinations of stuff that really just either wasn't possible or wasn't worth doing before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and seeing more, we're already seeing like triple color decks with the Rampiers and the other types, but I think we're going to start seeing that as just a matter of fact in these coming sets, and that's really exciting for the game.
Yeah, it's also interesting if we expect that to be a continued thing to where you're playing like 5 different colors, because you can do that now with multicolors more. But I wonder if like the cards are just getting so powerful that you're almost encouraged. You might as well just play like the most consistent deck, right? Whereas like before, you could splash these cards because you wanted that high power level that your colors didn't have access to. So I kind of wonder where it's going to go. It could go where you're saying, where you're playing all these different colors and you can discard this for any color. But also, I wonder if like there's going to be a critical mass of cards in a color where it's like, well, there's so many good win cards. Maybe I don't have to splash. Maybe there's so many good cards that I can play Ritz and not play Marsh. I know that sounds crazy right now, but would be interesting.
No, certainly.
Um, of the cards we've seen so far right now, Rochelle, what is the card that you enjoy the most, or that you'll think you'll enjoy the most? I know typically you get some playtime in the office, but that's not really happening right now. So,
Yeah.
what card do you think that, or what card are you most excited for right now?
So the card in the set that I was most overall excited about, obviously, was the box topper, because I used that image on like my sleeves and
And your deck box
my
too,
deck
right?
box and everything. Yeah. Um,
How
and,
how? Oh, go ahead.
and I guess when I first saw the whole set, one of the first things that like instantly came to mind was just like her and Thancred as like a deck, like some sort of party attack deck to like go wide. Um, I don't know how good that'll be, but um, that was just something that seemed kind of cool. Especially like she can draw a lot of cards. Like if you party attack and then throw a unit in, that just seems, I don't know. That seems like it could be really good or it could just be terrible. I don't know. Because you're having to focus on this party attack thing, which like typically hasn't been something that's a huge focus. Um,
It's been
in
hard to
terms,
pull off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, in
Well,
terms of like just card itself, like not just like what I'm, not just like because I like the art, but I think a card that comes off as very powerful to me, that's like it could go either way again of like it could be really good, but there's not really any way to tell until I see like what people are playing, is Beatrix. I just
I think
think like
that's okay.
reducing costs like that just seems really good.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right, now, would you lean towards a tricolor deck, or would you lean fire, water, fire, or water, lightning?
For Beatrix,
Mm-hmm.
probably Fire Water. I could see going tricolor because like you guys said, um, it's gonna be way easier to do that with multi-element cards.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think Fire Water might just be consistent when you have stuff that's already like really strong fire and water and knights that you can just like consistently get early plays out um, with that Beatrix. The only thing is like leaving Ramza on the table and not running lightning just feels wrong. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I could definitely agree with
I've
that.
just looking at Ramza and you just sad face, teary eyed, just because it's just like he does so
Yeah.
much.
The thing
right.
too about that color combination is, well, one, you already have really great backups in those colors, like Duke Kaltana, which searches for those lights. But on top of just being consistent with the dual color cards, you also have both Moogles. So then you have the lightning Moogle that taps for water, and you have the water Moogle that taps for fire. So I feel like there's definitely room to be very consistent and still be 3 colors across nights.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
with
Writing it down is
Beatrix like
something I want to
enabling
do.
it, yeah, it's just you can go
Yeah.
3 colors easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the card I'm most looking forward to so far is Ultros, and I know that sounds really weird as a common, um, but there are a lot of cards that are small like that, but end up being really powerful. Now, Porum is obviously was something that was on people's radar right away because it had EX burst,
Hmm.
which is obviously insane.
Yeah.
But Ultros is such a good card for like fanfare fodder and for blocking synergies, and then also it has an active ability, and then it also ties in synergy with the legend version of itself. And
Yeah.
so I think that like Ultros is probably one of the cards that I'm most excited about. Um,
Yeah.
with the
I
other one also being Dusk, because Dusk allows you to play Barrel Eye in your mono water Guido deck. So along
I'm
with
really
these,
enjoying the FFL package, little by little as they come out. It just seems like there's definitely something strong there. So, but we can
I
only.
saw I saw a card today that I'm very excited about, but it shall be not named.
you're just
Voldemort
excited
stack.
about them. Nice.
Very cool. Very cool.
Now we talked a minute about how you're not exactly being able to get your testing in. How has COVID really impacted you
like for playing the game.
for playing the game? For how do you keep a love for it? Like through the community right now, we're able to really, for us, we're able to carry the game on our own soldiers, our own shoulder, right? But for I imagine working under Square Enix, like you have to be proud that the game's still doing well, but like also sad that you don't get to enjoy seeing people play it because that's got to be the best. Like to me, if I worked at Square Enix, the fruits of my labor would be watching people play these cards that
Yeah.
I've
Like
marketed so hard and
yeah. I mean my favorite part about the job in general is just getting to watch all the tournaments like at the tournament. um and so like that's been something that's like that I've like very much missed, and that was part of why um we really wanted to do that whole influencer tournament.
Mhm.
Um and then also like I've gotten to watch matches that Hobby Japan played with each other while they were both getting ready for, and then when they actually played through the matches for the oh, what was it, the we play with your deck
play your
list
deck
thing.
list. Yeah.
Yeah. um I got to watch matches that were never like released with them also, that just were really fun to watch, so that's something that like um I
Kind of
guess
motivates you.
keeps it exciting, to be able to just watch them, like the people that make the game playing it, and the way that they interact with cards is always like a little bit different than how competitive players approach it.
Sure.
So it's just kind of interesting that like they're almost always, from how it looks to me, purely approaching it at like a mathematical design standpoint, where it's like, well, I know what this is intended to do, so this is how I'm approaching this play. Whereas like players are always like, through testing, this is what I believe is the best play, you know? So there are
That's
times where
a
like
really interesting
I've seen
point.
them do things that I've never seen a competitive player do, and I'm like, okay, I don't get why they did that. Um, but that makes it fun to me, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm
Um,
sure that sometimes those things work out too because we're looking at as a competitive player, we're looking at things from a strictly like EV perspective. Like,
mhm.
what's our expected value for this play or playing it in this direction? And we don't necessarily see the full synergy of the way the cards were designed.
Right.
So that'd be something interesting. I do want to, and we're gonna transition to why we really have you here, why you joined us. We have you here because we like you, but
When I
we'll
heard you
transition
were
to why you
jumping
joined
on,
us.
I was just like,
But
this is really exciting now. Now we actually
I
have
want to
somebody we can talk to and
I want to
bounce.
transition. I want to actually kind of piggyback off what you said, right? And so I do want to talk about Neo X Death, and a lot. We've talked before on this stream that the reason that bans have ever happened in the past is really has nothing to do with how strong cards are. but the interactions that they have and the state of gameplay that it creates.
Yeah.
So I wonder, and I know you don't per se weren't there when they designed Neo Death, so maybe you don't have an answer to, did they think that every player is just going to play turn one, or they're not going to play turn one, or they're going to build up a nice solid board state to protect it and then play it? How do you think the turn one Neo Death is going to go? Do you think, if you had to guess?
It's definitely something that's really scary, obviously, um, because it just feels like it would always have value. I mean, people are already playing Veritas like turn one or two, when that was a big thing. Uh, so the fact that this one's like Veritas that's like a little delayed, but over time is better, is kind of scary. Um, I couldn't speak to like their thoughts on it or their testing or anything because I haven't seen them play with it. I haven't seen the card played at all. Um,
Because I wonder if it ties into kind of what you said, where it's like, well, they designed it for this purpose, but
yeah,
then a competitive player is going to be like, well, I ran the math, and this is maybe an unfavorable Volt matchup, but if they just simply don't have an answer, then I'm going to run the Neo X Death every time turn one,
I
and
so
I wonder if they.
I think to me one of the meta shifts that might happen with Neo X Death, especially if like how you guys were talking about last week, I think like well if everyone jumps on this, then now every deck has this, so then your counterplay becomes different than how it currently is. Um, if you're running fire, I don't think you're putting Neo X Death in. I think you're sticking with Kadaj probably. Um, so it's like, what deck does Neo X Death go in? And then how do I counter that deck? Turn one Neo X Death is gonna be like a hill to climb, but there's also the chance that like, say even like Leviathan comes back or Famfrit or something like that, where like they turn one Neo X Death, and then you turn two, or your turn one, I guess, like drop Yuna Famfrit, and then like you spent the same amount of CP, I think, right?
Yeah, 3 in a card.
You spent the same amount of CP, but you have a backup, and they have nothing, right?
3 cards in a card.
So there's still counterplay to that, and
Yeah.
that's like, I don't think that's the only combo that there is to like counter a turn one Neo X Death. I'm sure there's a bunch that's like effective. That's just one that instantly comes to mind where like I'm spending the same exact amount and I'm coming out on top over it. Where like you were rushing too much to do that. And considering how much we've seen in the past, when Famfrit was part of the meta, those kinds of turn ones like Yuna Famfrit or something, I don't think that's too unreasonable to consider that something like that would come back.
Well,
I'm sure Zayn's hoping that the Mono Water
Right.
You got some hopefuls
makes
out
a
there.
comeback. Yeah.
well, if I may present another scenario though, like there's a lot of forwards now that go get darks as well, right? So what if it's like a 2-cost Prish, go get Ned, then the Famfrit thing doesn't really.
Correct.
You're kind of
No,
not
you're right. You're right.
that.
I
You're
I
right.
would say that there's also good brand. I think more often than not you'll present 2 forwards on turn one. So Fanfare is an answer, but not the only answer, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
But I do wonder if there's an interesting meta shift that'll also happen, where cards or elements like lightning become a little bit better because they play a little bit better off when no players have cards in hand, right? And
Yeah.
so like, if both players are expending great amounts of resources to answer this or to present this, then being able to like top deck even something like really simple, like well, the best answers would be thaumaturge, but thaumaturge and Gesper, but like even something like a Buckaboo, right, is really interesting. So like if you play Ned plus Buckaboo, right, so like they're gonna answer it and then have no cards in their hand, and so both decks need to be designed to play off of just 2 CP backups, right? Because there's a chance that you're going to be without a high value card. So cards like Tyro right now, Tyro's clearly the best backup ever printed. I don't think there's a lot of contention for saying that it's not. But Tyro might be much worse when Ned becomes very popular, despite searching for it. Because the ability to cast Tyro when you've spent resources to answer the Ned or to play the Ned, I think, become a huge factor. So, like you said, the Yuna Fanfrit thing, Yuna probably gets a higher stock now, right? Because it's a 2 CP backup that if you've spent your resources to deal with their Ned or you didn't have any resource for their Ned, like let's say you went first and you played your backup and then they played Ned. And it's like, oh, crap, I might lose my backup now. Now you have at least the resources to play off the top of your deck. Yeah. Which is interesting because there are cards that do that well. Cards like Goomba, right? Rampier. These are cards that could see like an influx of play. But then I think there'll be traps too, right? So like people will try to play Thornton, and people will try to play Larsa. These things that's like, oh well, if you do kill my backup, I'm gonna go and draw cards, or good things are gonna happen to me anyway. But they're gonna forget that like, oftentimes they're gonna be spending their first few turns answering these cards, and then when they draw their Thornton or they draw their Larsa, they simply won't have the resources to cast it. So I do wonder if there's gonna be a cool. And I say cool because I actually look forward to that type of transition where the metagame is like, well, we're gonna play small, cheap stuff. Things like Ultros, which get value even when they die. So I don't. There could be a cool transition that comes from it, but ultimately, I think I am pretty terrified of Ned.
Yeah, no, I mean it's rightfully meant to be terrifying as like a dark legend, but I think that there are answers to it, and even though we're not clear on every single one right now,
yeah,
I'm positive that they have tested this with how balanced things have typically been.
I would agree. Yeah, I feel like it's very often that we as players tend to overreact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a good reason for that, right? A lot of us come from other TCGs where when things get broken, they get broken very quickly and get out of hand very quickly, right? And the truth is that with any TCG, the player base is going to break it. If it can be broken, they're going to break it before the creators do, because there's more money. There's more, right? Yeah. It's not even just like thousands more. We're talking, tens of hundreds of thousands more. There is exponential amount of players. And the other thing is kind of like you said, like, when Hobby Japan's designing these cards, they're probably designing them in a certain mindset. And this person is like, no, I'm sure that they thought of Guido, but let me just use this as an example, right? This person who has been in love with Guido the entire time, like, is always like, Guido's not a bad card. You guys are crazy.
Guido's coming back, boys.
Sees a card like Barrel Eye, and they're immediately like, you guys don't even know. This is broken. Like, it's been on my mind since day one. I've been waiting for this card to reprint, or for this card to print, right?
The reprint to make it playable.
So I think that we both overreact, and we're also very cautious, because one thing about the Final Fantasy community is we are very protective of something that we don't even own. I mean, we like to own it. Like, we would say that I would, I know someone from Square Enix or Hobby Japan might not be like, oh, well, the fan base is what carries the game. But we do feel that way, right? And I think with that feeling comes some sort of entitlement. Perhaps not rightfully, perhaps rightfully. But either way, it comes with us being very protective over the game.
Yeah, I agree with that, right? It's just like
we're a little scared.
It's with everything, right? It's with the community. It's with how the card game is being played. It's like it's how people outside of the card game perceive it. Like if someone says, "Oh, Final Fantasy is full of like wimps," like don't we just like jump on it and just be like, "Well, no, that's not true. It's actually a very well thought out and balanced game," and we take pride over everything. So considering that this could be a situation where this is gonna harm our gameplay, this is gonna harm kind of like what we're kind of already used to. Yeah, we get overprotective. At least, from what I feel, that's something that just like, it's something that you don't want to deal with, right? You're like, oh, well, I want to play this game to try out like all the cool stuff that this game has. I don't want to just be in that top deck mode where it's just, well, okay, well, this deck is going to present some stupid situation that like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever it does, and those card games aren't that great. So it's just like, whatever. We'll just turn this game into this then. We don't want
Well,
that.
and to that point, Alejandro made a really good point last week where it's like, well, when that new player shows up and
Yeah.
like your deck is built around playing Ned and protecting Ned, and it's like, well, what do? Do you play it or you don't play it? Like on one end, we're competitive players. I would say that the majority of players that are still around right now are competitive. Even the ones that aren't doing so well, they're trying their best to get there, right? Like they're trying to improve the best and the fast they can. Do you play that Ned deck in that environment? And I don't know the answer to that.
I mean,
Um,
why
the
wouldn't
thing
you?
that
It's
I
still
could-
it's still a card that got printed, right? Like you still have every right to play whatever card you want.
you do. What I'm saying is when we talk about our fear for the tearing down the community, we don't know what this
Yeah.
will do.
So the thing that I could speak to with that is, if you look at what's been banned, like Turbo Discard and Dottaluma, and those both of those bans weren't that they were overpowered. The bans that have happened in this game, the like very few ones, were done because they created an unfun environment, and especially, it's more so thinking about new players. And so when a new player goes to an event for the first time or goes to locals, and it's their first time or even their first few times, and all they're seeing is everyone's playing, Dottaluma, Cactuar, Urianger, or everyone's playing Thaumaturge, Gesper, um, you know,
Right.
Sidalstein. Like,
Yeah.
it's something that Hobby Japan is aware of, and also like myself, and then um, everyone at SCE, the Europe side of Square Enix, we keep track of it. We note it. We send that information over to Hobby Japan, and if it seems like it's becoming a problem, they've always done something about it.
Mhm.
I do want to speak to that too. I think Kageyama had posted on Facebook the other day something along the lines of, I know this has been difficult, but I thank you for your patience. In the card game, and I had commented basically like, well, the reason that we're all here is the access that we have. Even you coming on this live stream and kind of talking to us about these things shows just the level of access that your team and the company is willing to go through, right? I don't think I've ever felt connected to like I enjoyed many years of Magic. Never did I feel a connection to
Right.
Wizards of the Coast. I never
Yeah.
felt a connection. I never felt that the company cared about my well-being, and it's just different now. And I think that's a good part of why we as a community take it so seriously, because we all feel an interconnection, you know.
I mean, this is something even that I've brought up before that I don't know how many people are completely aware of, but like, I applied for the job because I started out as a player, like in the community. I actually wasn't working at Square Enix until Opus 3, or right before Opus 3 came out, and I was playing Opus 2. I was actually like convinced to play by the Meta Potion guys, um, and because I used to play TCGs competitively all the time, and then I worked as a like tabletop game designer, and so they were like, "Oh, like you would love this. You love Final Fantasy. You love tabletop games," and I was like, "I don't know. Like I don't think I'm gonna get into a TCG again." And
Look how that ended
I don't
up.
blame you.
and then I did a draft with like Kyle McGinty, and some other people, and I really liked it. I really liked the design of the game, even with the old draft rules that were incorrect. and so I got super into it, and I wanted to, like, I had, because I worked at Sega, I had like a connection. My manager at Sega used to work at Square, so he knew who was involved here in America with the TCG, and I just like used that connection to like see if they had an opening and needed help and everything, because like I wanted to do more for the community, like for the game through the community also. Um, so even like on my end, a lot of people don't realize that anymore because it's been so long, but like I started out just another player that was like, oh, this is pretty cool, I might go to a tournament or something, and then like I've been to every tournament. So
Um, now I'm gonna ask you the important question that we need to know. Were you any good?
um
Wow.
so
like,
the draft
like,
that
You
I
don't
played
have to
in,
would I
answer
have
that
to
question if you
would I
don't
have
want
to
to.
worry about you at a Crystal Cup if you weren't working?
the draft that I played in, I came in third, and that was me not knowing what I was doing with when everyone else was like actually knew fully what they were doing. Um, but I used to play TCGs competitively. I played like Dragon Ball, uh, and I played Versus System. I don't know if any of you are like aware of that game.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I've played it.
but Versus, I was in the Pro Tour for, and I like actually like made a decent amount of money playing Versus.
Nice.
um, so like I have a background where I feel like, especially the fact that like the Meta Potion group, like literally like Kyle McGinty and Matt Okimoto, like convincing me to play this game, I feel like I probably would have gotten swept up in that. So whether I would have like won a Crystal Cup or anything, I don't know. Um,
Well, you would have had fun doing it.
but I would have had
Yeah.
fun doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Sit across the table from you and be like, oh
Well,
shit, here we
I have
go.
to say that would have been fun, but I'm also happy to see where you are. So
So Rochelle, I do have a question for you, and this is something that we kind of thought up. It's just like, okay, it's now that we have you on here, kind of get more or less like official answer or whatever. But once again, if you don't feel comfortable answering this, just say, hey, you know, you just can't talk about it now. But I was wondering how COVID was actually impacting your day to day at Square Enix, and then what are your thoughts on how we can just push into 2021 with reviving the competitive scene as well as introducing new players to the game. Like, what are Square Enix's uh, what are their ideas kind of just pushing forward, if you have anything to share with us for the community, just like what we can start doing in order to maybe help, you know, bring in new players or kind of like revive some of the older players who just aren't into it right now. Maybe you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as far as like what it's like with COVID, back in March actually, um, Square Enix, as a company, like globally, um, decided that everything would move to work from home. So, um, nearly every employee for Square Enix in the world is 100% work from home ever since March. Um, there are some who go into the office like 1 or 2 days a week. Um, but it's almost entirely work from home, and they've been really great about it. Obviously, when everything started um, with COVID, it was kind of like scary of like what's gonna happen. But Square was like staying ahead of it, and we were having talks about it in January of like what are we gonna do, and I'm personally like I've been really happy with the response to everything from like an employee standpoint. Um, it's with what everyone like with what so many people are going through with jobs where like they're losing their jobs or um or whatever. I mean, losing your job I think would be the worst thing with it, but
Mm-hmm.
actually probably not, because there are a lot of people that are in dangerous situations where like COVID's really high in their area, and like offices are making them go in anyway.
Yeah. Some
So that's
heartless
probably
people
even
out there.
worse. Yeah, but Square's just been really great about it. It's not even just that like work from home is an option; it's mandatory. People can't go into the office without some sort of like designation that you're someone who goes into the office.
Mhm.
And so from that side of things, that's been really great. As far as how COVID affects like the TCG, it's kind of difficult to talk about, especially like pretty much anything that I post on the Facebook page is like kind of the extent of what I can say,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's just unclear how things are gonna go. Uh, the reunion kit was something that I came up with Tim, um, where we just wanted something to help promote stores that have been impacted by this. I mean, I've heard of stores permanently closing during this, not opening back up. I've had like a local store that literally the local store that um, held the tournament when Fanfare was canceled. Um, they've closed down during COVID.
Oh wow,
And from what I heard, they're not opening back up. And like that place was great. um,
that's terrible.
I've heard that happening a lot, especially in California.
yeah. So so
The
since
thing
we
is
don't,
the thing is that I just want to the difference
sure.
between California and probably what we're doing with Miami and Tampa, right? I mean, Miami's not a cheap place to live, right? So
Um,
keep that in mind. But it's nothing like LA, right?
yeah,
As
yeah,
far as like, and I feel like for stores here, like Pro Play Games, Cool Stuff Miami, like they're able to stay open through just their online sales and pick up to go, right? Whereas like in California, you probably have much more shops that are competing for much more business in
yeah,
a area that costs a lot more money to live. So
yeah.
it sucks because here in Tampa it's like, yeah, our game store's closed right now and that sucks. It's like, well, we can go about supporting them by still buying from them and still pre-ordering our pre-release kits and our boxes through them. But I don't feel like in Tampa, especially, I can't speak to Miami guys, but in Tampa, I'm not too worried about our stores permanently closing. Whereas like in California, I keep hearing this happening a lot.
Yeah, I'm so yeah, and there's other places obviously in the country that are in that situation. I mean, California is so expensive, so it it was kind of bound to happen here.
Well, also too, we've reopened,
Mm-hmm.
whereas in
Miami
Cali,
has, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, California is not reopened.
right? So, like, yeah, for sure. I don't think Miami is expensive, but like he's been able to restart business as of 2 months ago, whereas California, y'all, it's still locked, right? So,
Yeah,
big difference maker there for sure.
yeah, and there's no real word on when we won't be. Um,
Yeah,
so that's another huge factor. So
certainly.
so like our whole thing was, and Europe was like, um, there were a ton of lockdowns going on in Europe at the time when we had like come up with doing this idea. Um, so I couldn't speak to whether any stores permanently closed there. I just know that it's something that's been going on here, and it's 100% a cost for us. We're not making anything off of it, um, and we just want people to do, like, we just want stores to do whatever is safe in your area for like distributing that stuff, um, as a way for hopefully them to like, obviously make more money, but then also to get new people or to get former locals like returning, just to like, even if it's just to check out the store and buy something, and
You're
then
right. They
maybe get
might
a
they might
promo
show up for this
card.
reunion kit, and they might also buy some, a game
Yeah,
while they're there. They might just buy a couple of packs while they're in there, right? And
right.
this is a promotion that doesn't cost the stores anything. I do want to clarify something, because the way you put it is any way that they can, but you're excluding besides selling it, right? Because these kits should not be sold.
They're not meant to be sold.
Okay, I just want to clarify
Um,
that.
we're encouraging that so like they're not meant to be sold, but if a store doesn't have the capability of, say, a raffle or a webcam tournament or something like that, or even there are some areas where like they do have locals. I mean, you said that like you have
Mm-hmm.
your local store has opened up. If
Hmm.
you're somewhere where like it's safe to do locals at like a small number or something, then like we're not gonna stop people from doing that. we're not gonna suggest people do it. um, but but definitely like that's why like when I'm communicating it, like I'm specifically on like Facebook and everything. I'm more along the lines of suggesting the webcam tournament type of thing or a raffle or something like that because that's safer. But even if those aren't possible, like if there's some sort of in-store promotion of like, you know, buy a display and I mean it still ends up being a raffle, but like, you know what I mean? Like
Well, luckily we have a
make
new
it
set coming out
incentivized,
very
basically.
soon, which
right.
we have a set very soon coming out. So it's almost like and raffling I hear is pretty easy to do since you have free online software that can do it for you.
Right. I think to me that's the easiest way of doing it because then, you know, you're not excluding anyone. Like I wouldn't want to see it where someone was like, "Oh, the first however many people to buy displays get a promo card
Right.
and then whoever buys the most gets the playmat or something like that." Um I think I'm not saying something like that, but just some form of like if you buy, you know, some minimum amount of packs or something and get entered into a raffle at the store and you can get one of any of the things, I think that that's like more than enough and that it's something that will bring people back into it. I mean, Aerith
I
isn't
think
Aerith isn't any like Kadaj, but it's still a really good card.
no, it really is. And one thing I think that if you're a local store or a local group struggling for ideas, one thing you could do simply is, if you're not open, hold a pre-release where people come in, they buy their pre-release kits, they take it home, they play over the webcam, right? And all you need to do is like, yes, I entered this. Here's a screenshot of me playing against Jacob, and then you're entered to win. You supported the pre-release, you're supporting the TCG, you're supporting the store, and you get to play some Final Fantasy in the meantime. So that just sounds like something you could do really easily.
Yeah, there's also stores that I've seen that are running like they're running locals but on webcams.
Right.
So I mean there's definitely ways to adapt. I'm not saying like and if you're not doing this, you're not doing it right or something because I know not everyone's capable of doing that, but um there's still ways to make it work. And even it doesn't necessarily need to be the store owner, but like if you're someone who's capable of doing it and you want to play, like then it's something where like you could put it together for like you and your group of friends and just let the store know like we're doing this and if anyone else local wants to join us, like can you get us a reunion kit to do this thing and we'll buy, you know, displays for prizing or something as like, you know, some sort of exchange going on there with the store. Um anything to like make it work. We just I don't like because we didn't put specific guidelines on it. We don't want to be restrictive right now when everyone's situations are completely different. And it's hard to know like yeah, you guys might not be having lockdown right now, but there's nothing to say that that doesn't happen next week. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um
No,
I
I
know
think that's
in
a really respectful way to go about it too.
yeah, I know that like in Europe there's been like times where the lockdowns are very strict where like you can't leave your home and then there's times where everything's back to normal. So
And there are changes between those.
Yeah, it's all over the
yeah.
place.
So um I like so that's why I don't want to say what someone has to do.
Mm-hmm.
But just it's just meant to help. Um yeah.
So I
Yeah,
want to talk about the reason that you're here. And so one of my questions, when I speak with Andy and Alejandro and I'm kind of brainstorming what I want to talk about, a lot of times we talk about like finances and the TCG and we talk about, okay, what are good ways to approach this? Because for myself, Alejandro finances, I can tell you right now, are very different than mine. But we're both looking to save as much money as possible
Yeah,
where
I'm
we right? Um,
saying
that's just the way it is with any TCG. So when I talk about things, I've been thinking about okay, so we have the regular competitive format. If people were to ask what the general format is, like we have tons. We have title, we have All Star, we have L3, we have your constructed. But for the most part, people would say that the normal default tournament structure is constructed. So Opus 1 through 12 soon to be. Um, that can come with some restrictions to newer players because there are 12 sets to catch up on. My question for you is if you could clarify the what's going on as far as Square Enix's policy on reprints. So, for example, Opus One reprints. Are we done seeing Opus One? Are we done seeing Opus 7? A really good Opus would be like Opus 11, or is Opus 11 being reprinted right now? Because God knows that's an awesome set to have.
So, one thing that, and this was part of when I said I've answered this question so many times. The only reprints that we've ever done of a set are Opus 1 and 2. And Opus 1 and 2 were sold out before I even was working at the company. And that was a big reason why I was like, I need to get some way to reach out to Square Enix because I was a new player. I was introduced to the game, through like really passionate players for this game. There was like a pretty good following for a game that was still really new. And when I went to go find somewhere to buy it, I couldn't. And that was like my biggest reason of like, oh, maybe there isn't enough of this or something, or maybe there's a distribution problem. And when I did get Square Enix, they were already working on reprinting. So that's where like everyone knows there's like Wave 1, Opus 1, Wave 2, Opus 1. Opus 1 and 2 are the only ones that have ever had 2 waves of printing. Opus 3 and on have never been reprinted. And there is like a bit of a miscommunication that happens sometimes where I think not everyone understands the distribution side of things, where if a store is looking to purchase something, they'll reach out to their distribution sales rep. The sales rep checks what the distributor has in their warehouse. The warehouse is stocked by buying it from us. But that doesn't mean that if the warehouse doesn't have stock, that we don't have stock.
It just means they need to reorder.
Yeah. For games like Magic or Pokemon, because they're so huge, the distributors purchase way more than they need to. So the sales reps aren't really used to smaller games where the distributors will like guess on how much they think they need. And then if it's out, because they don't see that typically with Magic or Pokemon, they think like until like Magic or Pokemon literally is sold out, they think like if it's not in the warehouse, then it's gone. Because that's what they're used to. And so there's some sort of like miscommunication that happens there.
If it existed, it would be in the warehouse.
Right. So it's not like no one's lying in this step, you know what I mean? There's like a misunderstanding happening, but there's no one like nefarious or lying or anything. There's just each step along the way is sort of like a game of telephone. And
I literally sometimes.
Jeez.
And like currently Square Enix does not have Opus 1 through 3, which is something that we talked about at the beginning of this year. Or I had mentioned it in I think the NA group when I was in there, that Opus 1 through 3 would be out soon. And I think I even did a Facebook post on the official page that in North America, Opus 1 through 3 was almost gone, so that people could put in like a final call of orders.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason of that was we were already working on the tins for the Tifa tin,
Mm-hmm.
which had Opus 1 through 3 in it, and that used up the rest of our stock.
Oh, that's interesting to think about.
So we wanted to make sure when I did the last call that we weren't going to use up too much with the tins.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think the reason is, and you had said like your this question gets asked to you all the time, is that even though you've answered the question, the reason people like myself ask the question yet again is
Right.
even though you've answered it, we forget where we heard the information from, and we've definitely heard that Square Enix is doing another round of Opus 3 or another reprint of Opus 4 because it's low, or Opus 5 is really hard to find. Then all of a sudden Square Enix did another run of Opus 5. I think that's the one that we all heard, right? Like Opus 5 was
Yeah.
so hard to get. And it's like all of a sudden, oh, they're doing another reprint of Opus 5. Well, no, you've always had that printing in your warehouse. The distributors finally ordered more, right?
Yeah.
And I
And
think that
so-
because we hear it so many times that we're like, okay, we don't even know which one to follow. So it's good to finally hear, hey, here's the situation.
Yeah, so the thing is that the stores, when there's that miscommunication happening, right, where the sales rep thinks it's gone, but it's not, the sales rep needs to put in like a back order for that store. But the store doesn't know to ask for it because they haven't dealt with that before. Because when they're dealing with Magic or Pokemon, it's either there or it's not.
Right.
Um,
And I
And
imagine they
obviously
constantly
it's-
refresh that.
obviously it's scattered for other, like for every game that's not Magic, Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, a lot of them run into this. So
So let me. Do you mind if I ask you? So
sure.
so we understand a little bit more about how this works. I
Mhm.
help me rationalize my fear. Where my fear is that I mean, I love this game, and I think that everything that so far the Hobby Japan Square Enix has done has been amazing, and minus the exception of maybe Ritz and Kadaj, is really moving into the best direction, right? Really healthy, and I enjoy sharing this game and talking about it with my friends.
Right.
What I would fear is I've always been like, yeah, it does suck. I mean, it does suck that when you have a new friend that wants to get into the game, I'm lucky. Right behind me, as you can see the top of these binders, I have every single card in order, luckily foiled out. And so if anyone wants to borrow my cards, I can let them borrow. But someone who wants to get into the game and they need Shinto's a bad example because it's reprinted. It's in Opus 12. It's very very rare, but selectively. Point if they need a Maria, right, and they want a Maria, Maria might be harder to find, right? So my fear is that as the game grows, let's say Opus 12 is even big enough, but let's say Opus 13, Opus 14,
Yeah.
how do we justify telling new players you should get into this game, but all the Marias out there are already out there. You can't. They're not. There's no more Marias, right? And players like myself, I don't know how often this happens, but players like myself, I know there's always a secondary market, and typically, a company like Square Enix or Wizards of the Coast or what have you isn't too concerned about the secondary market. But how I'm never selling my Marias. Those Marias are never entering the secondary market.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get people to play the game? And if that answer is L3, what's that look like? And I only say that because L3 is so much easier to keep up with, right? And that maybe that's even the purpose of the format, right? Is hey, like this really is much more cost effective for a newer
Well,
player.
so um, currently there's capability of buying any set. Like, even though Square Enix doesn't have Opus 1, 2, 3, you still can buy Opus 1, 2, 3. Opus 1 sealed displays are hard to find, but like Opus 1 in general, as far as I've seen, isn't too difficult to find. Anytime that there's been a card that may be hard to find later from an earlier set, like Shantoto, because they're less printed, that's something that's looked at for the legacy card thing that's starting up. So
I do like that. That's a good point.
So Shantoto, Lock, things like that. I mean, obviously not Minwu, but
Well,
but like that's the
fun
purpose
cards
for
are
things
fun.
like Shantoto or Lock.
so I like that. I think that's a great step in the right directions. Sergio says in chat, Maria is easy though. Well, I use Maria for a very specific reason. There was definitely a time where Maria was like one of the most expensive cards in the game, and it was wildly random because it's a hero. I get it, but I use Maria because whenever I think about a card's availability, Maria is one of the cards that comes to mind. It was like Maria was really hard to get, Al Cid was hard to get, Minwu. So there's these heroes that were really randomly difficult to get.
Yeah.
I do like that answer that, hey, like we're looking at this. And no, not only that, but they're not even just throwing in what the cool thing is you're not even just throwing in Shantotos, right? You're literally putting in these full art.
Yeah. It's a Shantoto that like no one's gonna be disappointed about pulling. So even though you're someone who's been playing since the start, you're not. If you pull a Shantoto in Opus 12, you're not gonna be oh crap, I have a million of these. Like it's a new Shantoto. There's a reason for pulling it, even though the card is effectively the same card. There's still something that existing players get and new players get.
Well, and I'll say another cool thing about things like Shantoto, like that being happening, or for example, BFA. For those who don't know, Braska's Final Aeon was spoiled as a full art, right? Is that Braska's Full Aeon, like that card, I was never leaving my binder. I mean, to put in a Dex it was, of course, but I was never getting rid of that card, right? And now that there's full arts available, that I might put those back into the market. Right, so the same thing with the Shantoto. Well, Shantoto's a bad example because mine are signed by Kelsey Britt, so I'm never selling them again. But there are other cards that, as the full arts become available, it's like, oh, you know what? All right, well, I might trade this now to someone, right? Whereas I wasn't before. So yes, that Shantoto might be hard to get. So it's difficult to say, well, printing these cards that are extremely rare, like full art Shantoto, is going to change the market. But it just might, because there's players like myself who love Shantoto, and it's one of my favorite cards. There are times where players say it's bad. That's fine. Like I love that card. It's very high on my playability list, and getting that full art is high up on my things that I want to do. So I'm going to trade for it and make that happen, which means I'm putting other cards back into the market. So I just wanted to say that because I think that typically there might be people who say, well, yeah, but like the chance of opening that foil lock full art are pretty low. Yeah. That's true. But the chance of now getting my old lock that's foil, very much a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, like currently there is an existing pool of locks when you take all available locks on the secondary market and then every lock that every player owns. And now we're adding more locks to that pool. Even though it's hard to get, we're still increasing that pool. BFA similarly, even though BFA is not an old card, it's a recent card. That's like, the tin is something where like a new player jumps into the game and like, you should buy this. It has a bunch of packs in it, and the Bart's promo is like, obviously you're not going to play it, but it's a cool thing to have. But then, but BFA is like an insanely playable card. Like it's an insane card where you can just go to the store and buy it in this tin, or you can go online and buy it.
I like that.
That's something that we're like constantly looking at. Like when we were talking about doing a second tin and deciding what the promos are, it's a completely group effort. It's not just Hobby Japan deciding what goes in it. And so I gave input on it. Square Enix Europe gave input on it. And our biggest thing was having something for collectors, having something for new players, and then having something that's just cool. So like the Sephiroth, kind of like in the previous one, Tifa is like the just cool card. The Sephiroth is just meant to be cool. The Bart's is something that collectors want, and then
the BFA is for everybody. And I like that. I like that whole retrospect where you start thinking of like where we came from, and people started in Opus 2, Opus 1, whatever availability that there has. We gotta admit that there are, for new players, there's so many different avenues that they can take right now to get into the game. They don't necessarily have to start jumping in and buying Opuses. There's so many 2-player starter decks. There's so many of the single player ones, and they come with an absurd amount of playable cards. You know, where it was like, well, when we started off, we had the 3 starter decks, right? We had the Final Fantasy X one, like the water one, the Final Fantasy 13 one, and then the Final Fantasy 7 one. And then from there, it's just like, well, you can grab these cards that also have playable cards and lots of playable cards in it, and kind of just build from there. And that's kind of where all of our foundations came from, right? But now you have this just sort of just like, tins. I didn't think, I was just like, man, I can't wait till this game has tins and we have like exclusive foils and full arts and everything. Full arts just like, for me, it's just like an icing on the cake, right? It's just like, okay, we're gonna give you not only a playable card in there, but it's gonna also be full art, so it is, a hot commodity. Yeah, everybody's gonna have their hands on it, but that kind of also gets you in the foot in the door to make your deck look pretty, if that's also what you want to do, aside from just playing competitive. And then it also makes that person who goes to locals, who doesn't want to go to a Crystal Cup, who doesn't want to go to other places, although they'd be missing out on a great adventure, pretty much. But the people who still want to play like a pretty awesome deck, that they can get their hands on and stuff like that. So definitely, give yourself a pat on the back for that one, for just, for releasing content and releasing cards like this, where they have access to the person who just wants to go to locals and have a good time. And I think that there should be definitely a lot more geared for that person, because eventually, who knows, they might want to grow and expand and eventually become that competitive player. But we have to, nurture what we have, and that's where it starts when it comes to just we call it the petite locale.
And to Andy's point, you look back at cards like Genesis, Vivi, Diabolus, Celeste, right?
Yeah.
So when I talk about cards that are hard to find,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to be honest with you. I don't know how Sergio might be able to chime in chat how he feels, or Lockwood might be able to chime in, because maybe those reprints hurt. Maybe reprinting Genesis hurts, but I imagine that they are selling those to newer players and players like myself who want copies for friends to be able to play with, right? So that it helps. Those cards being so much accessible. I just posted a thing on my Facebook the other day that talked about, if you needed more of a reason to play TCG, here it is, right? And someone said, well, what happens with this case? Are the cards really hard to find? The best cards really hard to find? And I'm like, no, you get 3 of the best card in the game out of the starter deck.
Yeah.
And that card can be played in any deck. Preferably ones you're not playing light cards in, but any deck.
It shouldn't stop you.
So, like, one thing that I wanted to say real quick was that when you had said that you were waiting for tins, like, as like a TCG thing, like, when is this game gonna have tins? That was something I was actually saying behind the scenes all the time. Like, when are we gonna do tins? Every game that I've ever played has tins.
Mm-hmm. They're also a great place to keep your cards in, and they're nice and they're hard.
Yeah. Yeah, just new player items, I think, are always the most important thing. I think like, the tins were always approaching from, how can we get things to people that they don't have? So that's why, like, the first one had, like, the Ashtola and the Hraesvelgr, because those were, Chinese exclusive?
Yeah.
And we didn't want to have cards like that, where people just had no way of getting it. So they were put in there so that people had some sort of access to them. And obviously that made it way more accessible than before, so it took away, like, some, like, secondary market value for having something like that. But that's not making sure, like, I don't want to say this in, like, too negative of a way, but like, our concern isn't necessarily on the secondary market in terms of
I got you 100%.
Yeah.
No need to.
Sounds like I'm saying.
No, you're absolutely. What your focus is making sure that players are able to play the game, new players are able to play the game, and enjoy the game. And I absolutely think that is absolutely where the focus should be. I've said, when I was podcasting with Zach, I said a ton of times when these cards were printed, yes, I have 3 foil Genesis, yes, I have 3 foil Diaboluses, yes, I have 3 foil Cecils. I don't care that the value tanked. I am happy that players are going to be able to pick these up and now play with me, and that means so much more to me. And the thing is, the more players that play, I have to say that is a net positive. And again, I asked this question in the chat to both Sergio and Lockwood, um, if these reprints are a net positive, because I have to say that if the price of Genesis drops, that's got to hurt the store, right? But if players pick up the game because it's more accessible, that's got to be good for the store. And not only are people going in there to play the game and spend money on Final Fantasies, what Square Enix would like, but they're also spending money on snacks and drinks and and board games. And so getting them there to be able to buy these starter decks, I think is such a great thing.
Yeah. And something else that's like, I mean, I guess to me it's cool, but also somewhat disappointing, is having a 2-player starter deck with Cloud and Sephiroth on the cover is something that I've been trying to make happen since I started working here, and I'm not even, or at least I wasn't before FF7 Remake, but like, I wasn't like huge into Cloud and Sephiroth. I was one of those Final Fantasy fans that's like, oh my god, it's so overrated, like, why does everyone like Cloud kind of thing. But to me, it's like, if I think about the average person, right, who just like even peripherally knows Final Fantasy, they want to see something like, oh, where's something that I hear all the time at conventions, for instance. When we do those merch booths at conventions, people are like, well, which one has Cloud in it? I just want to buy the one that I get to play as Cloud. So like,
I saw that even with the starters. When I first started playing, the very first starter I bought was the one with Cloud in it. I didn't care about the one with Tidus in it. Like, whatever.
And so like, that's so important to people, like playing as or with, however you want to word it, their favorite character is like what's important to most people that play this game. And the approach for the 2-player starter decks at first was just with those first two, were just like, how do we make these starter decks that bring back staples like Genesis, they bring in staples so that new players have easy access to them, and they're just fun, like a fun thing to pick up. And just, even if I'm not a competitive player, I don't regularly plan to play this, something that someone could pick up and play with their friend and never have to buy anything else. But then that sort of, when we were like, okay, that worked. I mean, the first one was gone so quick, and the second one, not as quickly because people knew of it more. It didn't go as quickly as the first one, but it's still, I'm pretty sure it's gone or almost gone. It might be very low if there's any still in stock. The Cloud versus Sephiroth one, though, the focus then became like, okay, that worked. Like, that approach to it where there's good cards in this for a new player can just buy it, and they have good cards for the very first thing they bought, and it's something where they can just pick up and play with a friend without having to own anything else. So now approach it from like, what draws in a new player, because the first one with like Furion on the cover, and then the second one with like Onion Knight on the cover, those aren't necessarily things that are like,
reaching down the...
I've been waiting for this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For some people maybe, but for the overall, it doesn't like catch someone's eye.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that I was gonna say of like, there's some sort of disappointment actually, is that actually worked really well for Cloud vs. Sephiroth, where I've heard from, I check in with stores like pretty regularly, and I've heard from so many stores that their Cloud vs. Sephiroth copies weren't bought by their usual locals from before COVID. They were bought by new people who saw the thing in the FF7 Remake physical edition.
Oh, nice.
There was a little like ad for it in the box.
Yep.
And a lot of people saw the ad and went to go buy it, and were like, is this the thing that you guys do? Do you guys do events for this? Like, stuff like that. So when I say disappointment, it's in that actually worked. Like, capturing that worked, and it brought in so many, like, so much attention at the beginning of this year. But COVID having everything locked down, like, I'm hoping that we don't miss it. I hope that they're still engaged with it, and that when we can do events again, we can bring more people in. But with that being said, that's still our mindset going forward. Is now it's not just about what are good cards for new players. I mean, even like Cloud vs Sephiroth, while a lot of the cards are new cards, so they're not like reprints of older ones necessarily. Like Kadaj, like you said, is possibly like the best card in the game, and it's meant to be like something where a new player can pick up the Cloud vs Sephiroth. They have Kadaj, they can put it in any deck. So whatever they decide to play, they can throw it in anything, and they can be at some level of competition,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what they decide to play.
If they just
Yeah.
play turn 1 Kadaj, there's a chance they actually just win.
It could. I mean, it shuts down a Rampare if you just slam turn 1 Kadaj. So I do have a viewer question. Is RB, can we expect Square Enix to release more mats and sleeves that aren't tied to tournaments?
I mean, we did release sleeves like right before all this started.
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting question too, and I think the reason that I kind of would like to see that is because what you were just saying, Rochelle, that people come in and they're not even necessarily there to like pick up the TCG, right? When I first went in, I literally bought packs with the hopes of opening the Cloud or Sephiroth, like the original Legends, and using them for tokens during my Magic the Gathering matches, right? I wanted
Right.
to
Wow, what a
use the Cloud and
scumbag.
Sephiroth as tokens.
Right.
If you know, being able to have newer these newer playmats and sleeves, I think is actually a great way to promote the game too, right? So I would, you know, if I was still FFTCG Mass Taco said, if I was still playing Magic exclusively, and I was just stumbled upon Final Fantasy, there's no doubt I'd be sleeving up my Magic the Gathering decks and Final Fantasy sleeves the second I saw them on the shelves. So is that something we can look forward to more of, or?
Well, like I said, we actually like not that long ago released the Shinra logo, I think, and
Mhm.
then the FF14 Meteor as like new sleeves. Um, and then if you're talking about just purchasing, those are the most recent from just purchasing. Um, the reunion playmat was obviously like you can sort of consider it tied to competitive play, even though it's not necessarily. But in terms of purchasing, a big part of that is um, we currently have options, and so
I won't press you for more, but that sounds great.
they do well at stuff like Gen Con, obviously.
Yeah, they were a
Um,
huge hit. I remember that for sure. And it
yeah,
looks cool when you display them as well. It's very
a
nice.
lot of people at conventions who play other card games often will buy playmats and sleeves and stuff
Mhm.
from Final Fantasy, even if they don't play Final Fantasy.
Because they
Wow.
look good.
It just really depends. Yeah, it just really depends. I mean, I think the last new playmat to purchase was what, Terra? I think it was Terra.
Not sure, but
Because most of our playmats shifted to events.
Right.
And we don't wanna like disincentivize. I guess the thing that the way that I can explain this is that we want things to like wow people at events, right? And right now, like the playmats have been doing it, and while
I have to say that's very true. Yeah.
like
Mhm.
obviously not right this minute because COVID, but
Mm-hmm.
before COVID, a lot of people were really into like playmats as prizing, um, deck boxes, sleeves when we had them, like things like that as prizing. And even um, when we worked with Cascade, who like who does Magic the Gathering tournaments and everything, and Pokemon, um, they were surprised that the secondary market for playmats and sleeves were so high for this game, almost more so than cards, which is something that we're like that's on the Square side we're okay with, because the sleeves and the playmats don't keep you from playing the game, you know?
Mhm.
Like unless
Well, it is such a huge incentive for players too, right? If you top 30 to the Crystal Cup, you can literally sell your mat and pay for your plane ticket. And while I'm sure
It's always
Square Enix
good.
isn't like, well, that's the goal, that's the plan,
Yeah.
yeah.
it certainly doesn't hurt that I can kind of incentivize myself to go to these things when I know that I'll be able to pay for the ticket with just the pricing of doing fairly okay, medium.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's we don't we don't necessarily encourage people do that. We're just aware that it goes on. So like
Yeah.
um we don't want it every time that there's like a playmat, basically the way that it starts. I know that I'm like kind of rambling and jumping around a bunch before I get to a point. um every time there's like it kind of starts with like, wouldn't this be a cool playmat? That's kind of like the starting point for everything. And then it's like, okay, now do you think this is a design where lots of people would like it? Or just you like it? Or like it has a niche following? Or would people like to get this? Like, does it feel like it's something that's epic where people would want this for some sort of promotion? So, like, this year, as an example, the reunion playmat started out with this is a really cool image. It would make a cool playmat. And before COVID, like, before we knew what was going to happen, that was already something where we're like, this is going to be a playmat. Like, there's no way this won't be a playmat. And at first, we were thinking we might sell it. But then when COVID started and these stores are struggling, what can we do to help? We thought like, well, if we were already like gung ho about this in terms of like, this is so awesome, we should sell it, then like it's even better to just give it for free and as a way to help the stores. Um, and so that's how that went from like, well, maybe we won't sell it, maybe it's something for a promotion. Um, but like in terms of like a playmat, like the Nationals playmat with Estinian and Ysael and Shiva and Nidhogg on it, that's just because I love that image. And like for Nationals, like for NA Championship, um, the first one, like the World of Final Fantasy one, I think that was decided before I was there. Um, and then, but really just because there's a bunch of different characters on it, so it like sort of represents a bunch of different Final Fantasy things. I picked the next one because I'm like, we're never gonna sell this as like a widespread thing. It would do okay as like a Final Fantasy 14 item, but it's like kind of risky because who knows how it'll do. Like TCG and 14 might not necessarily be a one-for-one crossover where everyone who plays the card game is like, oh yeah, and I also play 14 and I'm gonna buy this. So we thought like, okay, let's do this for a tournament. And so everything's kind of approached from that standpoint. Like the Dissidia images used for playmats. It's like, oh, like we would want to do a series of these playmats so people could get their favorite character. But we don't want to sell each individual image because then that's like, oh, there's like a risk side of that of like, well, maybe this one will do poorly, but this one will, like, we won't have enough. Like maybe everyone wants Cloud and then no one wants. I'm not gonna name a character that no one wants, but
Onion Knight. No, I love Onion
um,
Knight.
um,
Whatever you do, don't say the Emperor.
The Emperor.
so that was why that was why that was used for then tournaments, is that like, yes, you might not be able to get the one that you want exactly, but that also sort of makes like a game plan for like people that travel, where it's like, and we saw this happen, where it's like, okay, my favorite
They
character is
traveled to the
Zidane,
one they wanted.
so I'm going to the one that has Zidane because I'm
Yep.
gonna get that playmat.
Yep.
Um,
And
so
then
that,
those suckers had to buy them on the secondary market when they didn't.
but like that's kind of the idea of it.
No, and it works. You know, how well, I'm looking behind me and I see this terrible Estola mat, or not Estola, this terrible Shantoto mat, which I don't love.
Wow.
Just kidding. I know it's my favorite, but how well, Cloud, who's one of my favorite characters of all time, I can't help but think that this is the top of the line. This is the best playmat you could have for Worlds competition, right? Like I couldn't have designed a better playmat.
Oh, thank you.
I just, like this alone is incentive for. I'd love to say 2020, but now we're gonna look at 2021 enough to be like, man, what's that Worlds mat gonna be like? Um, I mean, even last year's Worlds, or not 2019, but even 2018 Worlds was an amazing map, right? And
Yeah.
like we're only seeing the maps grow like better and better.
Yeah.
What would the why? I don't want to cheapen it because I love the map, but why not sell an image like this, right? Like
So
with this would just sell out, right? I mean, this
so
is
I
this.
can't really say so much on that other than there are other similar really cool images that we would like to sell, but this year has not made moving forward with those types of things too possible.
Well, I won't speculate other than I hope it's the same image as the Sephiroth that's on the new Lightning or the new Ice card, the new
I
promo.
can't
No,
I can't
I'm not
say what
asking.
any of them
I'm
might
not
be.
asking you to
It's just
confirm or deny, but I will
yeah.
say that I will buy one if that's what it is, and I will hang it
My
right next to that one and take this Shintoto mat down.
yeah, unfortunately I can't say anything that's like
That's okay.
happening. It's
Mm.
just this year
Will,
definitely impacted like what our like it changed our approach to what we were making and how we were planning things going forward. And that's why we needed the extra time for like delaying the set
yeah.
to just like figure out the game plan again. And other than the fact that if we didn't delay the set, then Opus 12 like is guaranteed to never see play, or Opus 11 was guaranteed to never see play, and then who knows about 12. But now it's
And I don't I can't speak for everyone, but I was very happy when I heard Opus 12 was delayed. Very happy
mhm,
because I had high hopes of being able to play Opus 11 in tournaments. But now, now here we are, months later. I'm like, yes, I can't. I'm so happy that Opus 12 is around the corner. Why did
yeah,
we wait so long?
Yeah,
And so, I
that's
yeah,
think that you guys,
one of
I
those
feel
things.
like you guys nailed the timing pretty well.
The
yeah.
delay
I mean,
was pretty good, but it did raise concerns like if they're going forward with this, like what does that mean? Like we're just on the outside looking in. So like delaying a card game or at least its next, installment, is it like, oh shit, is this it? Is this like, are they gonna just
yeah,
really try to, regroup and try to get whatever they can out of this last hurrah, and then shit, they move on to their next project.
Restart
yeah. I
again.
mean, we didn't want it to look like that, so that's why we tried to announce when things would like resume basically as soon as
Mhm.
we could.
Mhm.
Because especially like you saw other card games have not been so lucky during this.
Yeah.
Right.
And we didn't want to confuse people and make people think that that's where this was headed.
Yeah. So I will say that something that's interesting, just an observation. I don't know if Andy or Alejandro feel the same way, but we've hit the highest number of viewers that we've ever had during the stream at 28. Um, with the chat being fairly silent, and what I have to say to that is that it seems like people are really interested in just listening to what you have to say, Rochelle. Um, I mean, obviously you have a wealth of knowledge that we don't have access to. Um, but more than that, I do want to thank you again, not only for coming on here and sharing it, but like just being part of a company that cares about its community enough to come on and be like, hey, let me clarify some stuff that's been confusing.
Yeah,
And just chat with us about your favorite cards that you're looking forward to and that type of stuff. It's been really refreshing. Um, just hearing from you, and then also being able to be like, hey, um, look, I'm gonna share, like, when I'm done with this, I'm gonna share Andy's page, and and be like, hey, here's a video of Demand where we talked to Rochelle Brady, and who in the Magic community has that level of access? Please raise your hand, and when you don't, please come try this game, because I promise you will not regret it. So I wanted to say thank you. Oh, there's Andy.
yeah.
I
Thank
don't have
you.
that.
Yeah,
I don't
I
play
appreciate
Magic.
you. Yeah.
No.
Now, Alejandro, you've been kind of quiet before. I do got to get going, but I do want to hear some troll questions from Alejandro because I don't think it would be a good stream if we didn't hear them.
We also have one more
Nah,
segment to do
I'm
after.
just not feeling that well today, man. That's why camera's off and I'm not asking too much. But the thing is, I did have a question, but you guys were on a roll, so I just let you have it. And the thing is, if I ask it now, it's going to be another conversation. So I don't know. But okay, whatever. Here we go. So my main question was that you mentioned that, or Sam's opening question was that with 12 sets, that it gets really hard for people to catch up. And I think you had a good answer for that one where, there is good availability. Like if you need certain cards from 1 through 3 and 4 and all that, they're out there. You can find them and they're not crazy expensive either, right?
Yeah.
And then you're reprinting the super bombs that are like must-haves, right? So those are great strides.
Mhm.
Are you concerned at all that, like, what number of sets is it where it becomes impossible to balance a healthy game state? Like, you can already see Opus 1 combos that were not really intended or thought of from 3 years prior, right? So, what does that look like? Are we going to be on set 29 and have to worry about losing on the mulligan step? You know what I mean? Like, where does that line get drawn in your eyes?
I mean, so for me, I can't really speak to in terms of the design side of it, because that's all done at Hobby Japan. So I think the way that we're
How would you
approaching it,
handle it? Better question.
huh?
Unofficial. Unofficial, how would you handle something like that?
I mean, I can't answer it unofficially either.
Oh, okay.
But but like, it still kind of stands. Like, I guess something that I didn't answer earlier that Sam did ask related to this was whether L3 is like this, like if L3 is going to be the way to play in the future. And like, no, the reason that standard constructed as standard is because Kageyama-san specifically wanted people to understand that this, like, playing with every set, playing with every card that's not on a ban list, is the intended way of playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are, every time you introduce, 128 new cards, there are, you're introducing like a new dial to turn on every card that came before it, to an extent. Um, but through things like, the tins and doing the legacy cards, and then monthly promos, which is something I didn't even mention.
Yeah.
Obviously monthly promos for the first for the first year or so of the game were very like question mark, like, why is this a promo? And a lot of that had to do with cards that were popular in Japan, and that's why they were picking them in like the first year of the game. But we've sort of shifted from that, and I think even people are starting to see it with a lot of the newer promo choices. There are these cards that have been popular at one point or another at specific tournaments. And it's easier for Hobby Japan to access the other regions now in the past year or two because Europe and North America like broadcast like every major tournament pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that, like, that part of it is something that'll continue, it's still um it's still something where like I relay it and Tim relays to Hobby Japan, like, these are cards that are popular in our region. That's even a big reason why I like watching tournaments, is just to see what people latch onto, And while like we don't make Legends monthly promos, a lot of times cards that are like staples are meant to be those monthly promo cards so that, again, like a new player jumping into the game goes to a locals and then like, oh, now I got like, I mean, obviously this didn't work out that way right now, but goes to a locals, then they get like Zidane Heroic or
Amelot, Galdes.
Star
Yuna,
Circle,
or
Hey.
yeah. So like, um,
Both
that's
units,
kind of.
right? Both units.
Oh, that's
And both, I
true.
say both water units.
Right.
There's more. There's 4 water units, but both of the good ones.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about the backups, the
Yeah.
water backups, but yeah. So that's like kind of the approach going forward with promos is that it's always either like, oh, this art is really cool, so it would be a cool promo, or this at one point was a staple, and so it may be a staple again in the future. Um, so there's like multiple avenues where reprints are happening, and I think that's just going to continue going forward. At least that's the plan right now, is that anytime a card seems to be necessary but is inaccessible, we'll figure out a way to fit it back in.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But the balance side of things I can't really speak to, like,
No, I
because
understand.
I'm not really involved in that.
I think one of the coolest things that
So,
we could possibly see would be like cards that kind of don't have amazing art, but can be considered staples maybe through the next 5 opuses. Like for example, Ilua. Almost everybody plays Ilua if they're playing some sort of lightning build, right?
Right.
But we can say her art is kind of okay, and her full art's like whatever. But seeing an alternate art of that card would be pretty sick.
card is just trash, Andy. It's like, go plug that somewhere else.
When I'm playing versus Sam,
I think we're losing Sam.
People
Hold
that
on,
play
hold on.
that
I think we're losing Sam.
People
Hold
that play
on.
that card are trash.
Alternate arts are a little difficult sometimes because there's limited art of certain characters. So like Alua, for instance, that was like original art. That wasn't even like the existing Alua art.
Which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's saying the art's bad. It's just there's a whole lot of pink on that left side, and then a lot of cool art on the other side.
So a lot of times we don't want to do alternate art so much. We want to like save it for something unique. So like the tins having the alternate art cards, it's mostly to like, so far it's been mostly to like kind of celebrate Final Fantasy VII because that was like this year's thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like if we had events, I think you saw like the announcement at the beginning of the year that like there was a lot of Final Fantasy VII like prizing that was going to be for events. So that was like this year there were the 2 alternate art cards that were Final Fantasy VII cards to sort of like tie into that. And so we're always trying to look at like when there's like justification for it, not necessarily because it's a staple, but like when we can do something cool with it, when there's like a reason for it.
Or the franchise itself is making a breakthrough with its content, with its software. It's a kind of cool. So I don't want to take a lot of you guys' time. I know we're kind of like winding down right now, but is there possibly in the future where the TCG has some sort of like drive, or like it wants to like connect to the, like you said, the Final Fantasy 14 players and a lot of the mobile players too, right? The Brave Exvius, the War of the Visions, the Opera Omnia. Is there any way that we're gonna eventually, like, the TCG is gonna like try and grab out to that audience with some sort of maybe promotion or something? Like, hey, like in this tin, we also have a promo code to get like an exclusive piece of equipment within this this application or online or something. Is there something
So something
like that?
that's kind of difficult with that is that because FFTCG is global, but 14, for instance, is also global but separated by regions.
Mm-hmm.
If you purchase, you basically can run into all sorts of issues with if someone purchases the tin in the wrong region, then their code won't necessarily match their version of the game. And so there's like all sorts of headaches with making that work.
Mm-hmm.
You would also have to do separate print runs for each region, where like right now it's like all the English cards are printed at the same time. Like all the English product is printed at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
If we were separating it by region, then you would have to do like English North America, English EU, English, Japan, like, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
there's some issues with doing something like that. A lot of our tie-in stuff we're trying to keep more at the level of like this is something where like a 14 fan would want to buy like the Shadowbringers 2-player starter.
Yeah.
Um and even the characters on the cover of that, for instance, are something where like those are two of the most popular characters in 14 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So a 14 fan seeing that, it's like, oh, that's something that I want because I'm like a huge fan of that. And so that's more of where we want to do tie-ins. Even like the Brave Exvius thing, we did an event at the Brave Exvius Fan
Mm-hmm.
Festa that was huge and was insanely the biggest Final Fantasy TCG turnout that I've seen for anything.
Yeah.
I
Do
don't
you like
remember the
what, like
exact number
200 players?
anymore, but it was
I
like
had 500 or
Oh,
something.
fine.
I think it was
It
500.
was 500.
It was insanity.
That's half a Yu-Gi-Oh regional. No, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
And it was solely because like, oh, like Rain and Fina and Laswell are like coming to FFTCG and I
Mhm.
play this mobile game and like we gave out like Brave Exvius stickers and stuff like that. And so it was like we're more focused on like how we can do things that fans of those things like
Mm-hmm.
that will pull them into what's good about FFTCG and not like oh if you buy a bunch of displays of FFTCG, you might get a code for something in this game that you actually like, and then you're gonna throw out all the FFTCG. So we
Okay.
want to give them a
That makes
reason
sense.
to like FFTCG, not just get them to purchase it, because then that's sort of like empty.
Gotcha.
Right. And I think we saw that even happen with Dissidia. Um,
Right. That I mean
oh,
that's actually something that um we like don't want to repeat.
right.
We don't want to like burden like FFTCG players either with like, well, now I gotta buy this thing that I don't want because it has this other thing that I do want in it.
Well, I'm actually thankful for those types of things too,
You can
because
burden the
God
Opera
forbid
Omnia
there
people
are
instead.
companies that have exclusive cards where you can only get this card, and
Yu-Gi-Oh
Oh,
did
and
it like
so like
12
right
I
times.
said
now there are
I
there
said
are, yeah,
earlier
there
that
are two.
I said earlier that I played Dragon Ball competitively, right?
Yeah.
There was a
Well,
card that was a staple that was only in a VHS.
VHS.
Yeah, you had to buy a VHS of a specific episode
Oh,
to
God.
get a
It was
Oh
even like
staple.
one
God,
of the dope movies. It was like, yeah, you have to buy this episode.
it's
Yeah,
like Krillin goes level 2.
It's the
yeah, it was.
continuation of Goku flying across Snake Way. It's like, oh
12
great,
more
nothing's
hours.
happening.
That's awesome. So I do want to say not only thank you, but for those that want to stay like up to date on the things that are happening with Final Fantasy TCG, the Facebook page Final Fantasy TCG North America is probably your best resource. That's where all of the cool things are being announced officially. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't want to take up any more of your time. You're welcome to stay and laugh with us as we go over the memes real quick, or you can join the chat and laugh from there. But
Yeah.
I do want to say thank you.
Absolutely, it
Oh,
was a
no
pleasure,
problem.
absolute pleasure, just having you on here.
I am gonna step out of the call, but I'm gonna keep the chat open and look at the memes.
Well, thank you for your time, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
and just a
excellent.
quick thank you once again, Kaizen Strife, Princess Boohead, Light 90, Jinx Cruz, Shanks McShiv, and Diggle Leet for the follows. It's really awesome, you guys, to show some love for this channel. Now let's get on to the less serious portion of the gig. Let's check out some.
Well, for those that are looking for Zidane, this is all business.
This is all
This is
the
all
business.
This is all business. People were quiet in the chat not because they were listening, but because they were designing.
They were designed. I think I want to keep this open just a little bit longer because all I do see is a couple of designs from Jamandan himself, who actually had to leave. So unless he's still here, Lockwood threatened him to stick around and to sub, and he did neither. So let me see. So what do we have here? I think we just bumped the thing, but I
1,
see.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I do have to go soon, but I don't have to be here for this part if you want to wait to do it. I will say the ones I've seen so far are actually pretty hilarious.
I've only seen what Jamie posted. Where else have you seen them?
Refresh. Sergio's in on there. We got Brett Smith in on there.
Ah, refreshing is real.
I love Sergio's too. Turn 1 or
Oh shit. No, but it has to be Ned. We specifically said Ned Flanders, right? This is just straight up like, oh gosh.
No. I'm like
Are we opening up?
It's up to you. I think that Ned Flanders get bonus points.
The Ned
For
Flanders
sure.
gets bonus
Ned
points?
Flanders get bonus points. But like I'm still laughing at the turn 1 or turn 1.
I think there's gonna be separate pricing. I think there's gotta be. We're gonna have a top prize and a runner-up.
Okay, but I'm just gonna say I don't know how you beat Jamie's first one. I don't know how you design a funnier meme than the first Crystal Cup of 2021, the Ned family reunion. That is great.
Let me help you guys out. Let's see if we can see this here. So this is what we're looking at. The first Crystal Cup of 2021.
Are you able to share your screen for those that are maybe not on the page?
I mean, I have it up right here. It's just, just popping it up real quick on the old Facebook. So we got...
No, but are you able to share your screen, though, so that people who aren't on the Facebook or in the group can see them, too?
Wait, say it again? I mean, I can share my screen, yeah, but the ones that are just...
People that aren't on Facebook and want to see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Or people that aren't in the North America group that want to see what we're talking about.
I have it up right here. I'm literally showing it on the stream right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. See, I only have the Discord up, so that's why I have no idea what you're talking about.
So,
all right.
So these are the specifically Ned Flanders one, but then we've got just straight up just memes. You guys all could have like applied for MogPod memes and just been selected.
I don't know if that's supposed to be a burn or not.
No. I'm just saying, like, they're all good. Like,
okay, yeah.
No Burns, just no Mr. Burns.
I wasted my whole dang diddly turn.
Can I enter this? Can I enter this competition?
No, you absolutely cannot.
I can't give myself
a player of the month. Absolutely not. Oh man,
these are golden. I didn't see this one. Let me see. All shall return.
Dude, how mad is Kageyama gonna be when he sees the Family Guy one? You guys act like you're so much better than me.
Wasted my whole dang diddly turn.
Kadaj sniffing his nose in the air like, oh, this is so good.
Hey man, he created an empire. Now he has to burn with it. So
funny.
Guys, I will definitely choose we as a group will select the winner. And so it'll be awesome.
Alejandro, what is your favorite there? And Alejandro died.
He done passed it the F out.
Yeah.
Off his meds, probably. I'm gonna wait till tomorrow. See what else rolls in.
Okay.
Because we are also on a 3-hour difference between our...
That's true. There are people literally driving home in LA traffic.
Yeah, so...
trying to submit their entry.
Mm-hmm. Or they are also, escaping a fire. Our Irving brethrens out in Cali who have to mandatory evacuate. Do hope you guys are staying safe.
Crazy.
Let us know
also, don't play around. Get out.
Yeah, seriously, and let us know what gender the reveal was that started that fire. We can at least have.
We're so stupid. Oh man.
And Colorado's are they are burning.
My brother's
again.
in Colorado. Yep.
And it's just like, what the fuck is going on over there? Like
he said he literally can't see that far outside. Like it's that ashy and smoky.
Who?
My brother. He lives over in Colorado.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's some terrible times wherein you could definitely tell that Ned is near. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
welcome to 2020. Welcome back, Alejandro.
Oh, hey, buddy.
I'm so glad that you didn't die.
Thanks, man. No, I went to the kitchen. I heard you though. My favorite one is the turn one. That one's funny.
I start sweating.
It's like, what do I do? Pretty good.
Yeah. Although I also like it if there was a backup on turn 1 or a net on turn 1. It's just like, what do I do?
What are do?
Yeah.
What do?
Anyway, that's about it for me, guys. I'm gonna hop off.
I've got dinners to eat.
Yeah, I do want to say before I hop off, don't forget to submit your thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There's a little subscribe button down there. Please, come on, guys, support Andy's stream.
Do you guys want to see what happens also?
Please,
If
man.
you
Guys, sub another.
so from time to time I will get tipped from time to time, which is I never asked for any of that, but it's very generous. But just to show that like I've put some, you know, effort into these notifications, and I just want to share this one. I like this one a lot. I think this one, that's pretty cute, right? Somebody donates. You see that? Did anybody see that? I don't know if it played or not, but anyway. But little by little, what I'm trying to get at is that I am trying to grow this this stream just like everybody else who's working from home or doing whatever. It is a good way to kind of just spend some time, but also, you know, in the long run, make some sort of livelihood with it. But yeah, I mean, any support.
Don't forget to go ahead and like and follow my my channel. I'll drop it in there. We'll be there next week at 7.
Yeah.
How many followers you got now, Andy and Sam?
Oh.
I don't know. Not that many, but
almost to 100.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's not something I keep track of. I know that sounds lame, but obviously, like, I just
I need to, man. This is where all my
what
my energy
in the
goes
world?
to right now.
What just happened?
What just happened? All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and.
I have a lot of followers. What in the world? I don't know what happened.
Wait,
my mind is like blown away. Like, what the heck happened?
Say bye bye. I'm gonna go ahead and end it. Once again, thanks so much for sticking around, guys. I hope we got some official answers to some of your most itching questions about the future. You know, competitive play as well as product pricing, second market, and all that fun stuff or whatever. Hopefully we got through to that, as well as reprints and all that stuff and how else to grow the game. Other than that, I've been Andy Carmona. That guy's been Sam Prime. And the other one, who does not show his face, has been Alex.
And I'm Alex Ziegenhurt.
Yes,
sir.
Ziegenhurt Locker Express.
Later, guys.
Sky Captain Alejandro.
Later, guys.
Bye, y'all.